Hi, this is Dr. Toni Alvarado, your host for the Harmonize Your Life Conversations on Self-Care for Women of Color podcast. I'm glad that you're back with us this week. We have another dynamic, powerful woman that's coming to give us some information that I think you're going to find very important in your life as you seek to live a creative and satisfied life of self-care. Let me read her bio to you. Janine Batie-Gray. She is a pharmacist and she is recently retired from Merck and Company, a neuroscience medical science liaison director after 27 years of service. She received her Bachelor of Science degree in chemistry from Dillard University, New Orleans, Louisiana, and her Doctorate of Pharmacy degree from Florida A&M University in Tallahassee, Florida. She is a Florida licensed pharmacist. Janine has a special interest in health disparities in the African American community. She is currently working on establishing a health and wellness company which will provide formal and informal disease state presentations to healthcare professionals, patients, and caregivers. Her goal is to provide information to help patients like you and I become better educated about the diseases such as diabetes and sleep disorders so that we can better communicate with our doctors and other healthcare providers. In her spare time, Janine enjoys yoga, dancing, and interior decorating. She also enjoys traveling with her husband and family. She is actively involved in her sorority, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. She's involved with the Women of Color Empowerment Institute and her local church. She also serves as a mentor to many young adults, and she is the proud mother of one daughter and grandmother of two. And so I want you to help me welcome my friend, Janine Batie-Gray, to our show on this week. Welcome, Janine. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you so much, Dr. Toni. It is such a pleasure to be here and to talk with you on this podcast today.
I'm glad to have you. And I'm really, really excited, Janine, about our topic for this week because, we are in a global pandemic. And one of the things that I have been, for me, I've noticed that there's been kind of a break in my pattern of sleep. And I've seen some people on social media asking, saying, hey, why am I up at 2 in the morning? I'm up at 3 in the morning and can't go back to sleep. And it seems that people are really having issues with sleep in this pandemic. I know my sleep has been impacted. My sleep pattern has been impacted. And I know that there are others. And then those who are listening to this podcast this week who really, really have struggled with sleep disorders and just the whole issue of sleep. And so I'm so excited about our topic this week. When I heard you share a little bit about it at the Women of Color Empowerment Institute in one of our meetings, I knew then I had to have you on this podcast to talk about sleep and sleep disorders and give us some strategies on how we can have better sleep. So thank you. Thank you for the work that you're doing in that area.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Toni, for having me on today. And, as we talk about sleep, sleep is so important. And
Mm-hmm.
one of the reasons we need to understand the importance of sleep is because it improves our health. And it improves our health either by, how we sleep or why do we sleep. So I want to start with talking about how we sleep, and that's
Okay.
important to understand.
Mm-hmm.
So we have neurotransmitters in our brain, and the neurotransmitters actually help us to wake and sleep. So
Okay.
and right now we're awake, and then as the night goes on, the day goes on, we fall asleep. Then we
Mm-hmm.
also have two other processes that occur in our brain:
Okay.
homeostasis and circadian rhythm. So with homeostasis, this is a process that works to keep things steady within
Okay.
our body,
Okay.
like our blood pressure and our body temperature, and of course sleep. So homeostasis tells us that our neurotransmitters need to increase longer so that you are awake, and tells you your body when it's time to go to sleep. It also helps to make sure that you get enough sleep at night. And the second
Hmm.
process is circadian rhythm. This is your internal clock, and it actually tells you when your body when to feel sleepy and then when to feel alert during the day. Also, the circadian rhythm is controlled by dark and light.
Hmm.
So that's why we have such a huge issue when we travel abroad or when the time changes because our circadian clock is off. And it takes, as you know, several days for you to adjust,
Exactly.
whether the time changes or whether you're traveling abroad. That's a huge adjustment for the circadian clock. The other issue of why do we sleep, the question always needs to be asked. Why do we sleep? And I think this is the important part of why we should make it a focus to get good sleep. One, it helps to restore our energy, it
Hmm.
rejuvenates our body, controls our moods, it lowers our blood pressure, and helps you to learn and make memories. When we tell our young kids it's bedtime, it's time to go to bed before school, because it's very important for them to get good sleep in order to learn, um, be equipped to learn during the day. Also, it helps to make memories. And as you know, as you age, your short-term memory kind of,
Yes,
you know,
Lord.
goes away, but your
Yeah.
long-term memory, you can kind of,
Uh-huh.
remember some of that. So
Uh-huh.
that's all the reasons why we need to get good sleep. Also, very important at this time is it fights infection. As you know, when you get poor sleep and your
Mm.
body's worn down, you're susceptible to colds and other viruses.
Yeah.
Particularly in this time with COVID-19, it's so important that we are getting good sleep. And I highly recommend adjusting to this time right now.
Wow. So, I mean, you've given us so much to think about, when you talk about, first of all, that short term memory, long term memory.
Yes.
And you're right. It does it when we haven't rested. It is harder to remember things, and you'll have what, uh, my sister, yesterday we were talking, and she was saying, their chemo bank brain is real because she's going through chemotherapy and she talks
Yes.
about chemo brain. And I said, well, girl, I haven't gone through chemotherapy, but I declare I got chemo brain because I'll go in a room and can't remember why I went in there.
Absolutely. I am there with you.
And so, I mean, but this is so good. And especially when you say that it builds our immune system, is what I'm hearing. That when we
Yes.
sleep, when we have good sleep, it builds our immune system. And how important is that to where we are right now in this COVID-19 environment?
Well, there's a couple of things about sleep. One, in the COVID-19 environment now, people who have mental health issues
Okay.
such as anxiety, depression, and PTSD, all of these things are very important that that particular person gets the good sleep that they need. That means they need to go to bed at the same time and wake up at the same time every day because once you get off your good sleep schedule,
Mm-hmm.
it then will add to more depression or more anxiety. And a lot of studies have shown that with depression, they're not sure if it's the chicken or the egg. Does the
Okay.
depression come first? Or does the sleep issue come first? But
Wow.
depression is a huge issue, as you know, around this COVID
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
19
Mm-hmm.
virus. And we all need to check in with each other to make sure that we are focusing on getting good sleep. Our body needs time every day to rest and heal. And that's what good sleep does.
Wow. So you said it restores our energy.
Yes,
I heard you say it regulates our blood pressure. I'm taking notes here.
yes,
Helps us to learn. And
yes,
then I heard you say something about um, boosting our mood. I think I heard
yes,
you say something about that. So
yes.
why does it impact our mood?
Well, because again, the circadian clock that we have
Mm-hmm.
and the homeostasis that I was talking about a little earlier,
Mm-hmm.
that's all a part of balancing our body. And when sleep is
Wow.
impaired, that becomes an imbalance. And the imbalance is what leads to poor sleep.
Wow.
So if you are getting, and I will just go into the next part of this about how much sleep do we need.
Okay.
That's so important because The National Sleep Foundation, which is a national organization that really talks about sleep and how important it is. And if anyone's interested, if you just Google National Sleep Foundation, they have some guidelines about sleep and how much sleep
Okay.
you should have.
Mm-hmm.
But for an adult, it's recommended that you get at least 7 to 9 hours of sleep at night. And that's really so that you will feel refreshed. Now, sometimes some people will say, I don't need 7 hours. I can sleep 6 hours and be good. Or some people, I can sleep 9 hours. But most people can determine how much sleep they need to be what we call at our best the next day, rejuvenated the next day. And I encourage everyone to find that sweet spot of whether it's 7 hours or eight
Wow.
hours
Mm-hmm.
and stick with it so that they can be rejuvenated and able to work effectively the next day.
Wow. So, Janine, what are some
Yes.
common sleep disorders that we should be made aware of? What are some common sleep disorders?
Well, for women, where I'm going to focus on women right now,
Okay.
there are three that we have seen that occur most commonly in women, and
Mm-hmm.
one is insomnia. In fact,
Mm-hmm.
1 in 4 women experience insomnia during their lifetime.
Okay.
And insomnia is categorized as the inability to fall asleep or stay asleep, waking up too early, or you wake up early and can't get back to sleep,
Wow.
or not feeling rested at all.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very common in people with depression and anxiety. And because women have more anxiety and depression, we tend to suffer more from insomnia.
Wow.
And then the other disorder that you will see is restless leg syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a nervous system disorder that it affects the legs. And it's an urge to move your legs. And typically this occurs during sleep, but the onset typically occurs during pregnancy. Now, sometimes after pregnancy, the restless legs syndrome, which is also called RLS,
Mm-hmm.
goes away, but some women will still experience it post pregnancy. And then the third common sleep disorder is sleep apnea.
Mm-hmm.
And you can hear it also talked about as obstructive sleep apnea or
Mm-hmm.
OSA.
Okay.
And this is snoring that occurs. And sometimes people will snore, but if you snore all the time, every day,
Okay.
and your bed partner says you're snoring and you're stopping breathing,
Mm-hmm.
at night, then that's a huge concern. And one of the reasons for snoring or sleep apnea, during menopause, women lose estrogen. And
Okay.
estrogen is the hormone that helps to regulate sleep. And so now we're finding that a lot of women are undiagnosed with sleep apnea, and it can
Wow.
be very deadly. So it is important that if we are a frequent snorer, that you be evaluated by your healthcare provider.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So should so when you say we should be seen by our physician, what kind of things should we be looking for when we talk to our physicians? Are there any specific um questions we should be asking, or any particular type of treatment we should be inquiring about?
Yes. And so when you go and see your physician, so you've decided there are a number of things that you, at this point, say, I have a sleep disorder. So
Mhm.
you're having problems with what I described a few minutes ago as insomnia, or you just can't get good sleep, or you're getting up every night, to
Mhm.
urinate, or you may be a woman that's going into premenopause or menopause, and that
Mhm.
definitely affects your sleep. So when should you go see a physician? Typically, if you have done all the things that you know that you should do, so you go to bed at the same time every day, you don't drink caffeine before going to bed,
Mhm.
you don't drink alcohol before going to bed. And if you exercise at least 5 to 6 hours before going to bed.
Mhm.
And then you remove all of those distractions out of your bedroom, such as your TV, your iPad, your cell phone. You may play some relaxing music, but if if your room has too much light, you might need to use, eye covers, or
Mm-hmm.
you have too much noise. Some people use noise canceling earbuds, or
Okay.
uh,
Mm-hmm.
any of those things to say,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I've taken everything away, I've taken a warm bath, and I still can't go to sleep. Then that says it's time to go to the doctor.
Okay.
So the doctor will ask you several questions, and it's best to kind of do a sleep diary
Okay.
before
Mm-hmm.
going to a doctor, because then he can look at that diary and say, okay, out of this week, you slept 3 days well, that you describe as
Mm-hmm.
good sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And then he'll ask you, are you under stress? Have you, loss of job at this point could be
Mm-hmm.
a reason. Or there's, other physical things that may be going on. Some people have a hyperthyroidism, which
Yeah.
also
I have
will
that.
impact.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
that will impact
Mm-hmm.
your sleep.
Yes.
And so the physical exam is what will dictate, or rule out other comorbid conditions that would impact sleep. And if
Okay.
after ruling out all of that, then he will tell you, so here's the next steps of what we need to do.
Okay, so listen, don't
Yes,
self-diagnose yourself with a sleep disorder. Make sure that you're
right.
doing so. Some of those strategies, Janine, I want you to go back over because you gave some good tips on how we can improve our sleep. I heard that in there when you were
Yes,
saying remove those distractions.
yes.
Yeah. So, what are some of those strategies and distractions again? I want our podcast listeners, and if you're listening, I want you to take notes, especially if you've been dealing with sleep issues. If you've not been able to
Yes.
sleep in this pandemic, or even before this pandemic, you're finding that sleep is difficult for you, or you may have already been diagnosed with a sleep disorder, and this is confirmation or just some more review for you. So, please, please listen to what she's saying. So, give us those strategies again for getting
Okay.
better sleep.
So, some of the most common tips to provide that I can provide to you today
Mm-hmm.
is try to go to sleep when you feel sleepy and
Mm-hmm.
get up
Mm-hmm.
if cannot go to sleep within 20 minutes of going to bed.
Okay.
Um, do not take a nap after 3 p.m. Do not drink caffeinated or alcohol before bedtime.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope everyone would not be smoking at this time. But if you are a smoker, I would recommend that you not smoke,
Mm-hmm.
and particularly don't smoke before going to bed.
Okay.
Because nicotine can activate your brain and cause you not to go to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Also, exercise. We always encourage exercise, but it's not recommended that you exercise 5 to 6 hours before going to sleep,
And I know
because
that
that
I know
is,
that's right because I'm an avid
yeah,
exercise queen, and I
yeah.
work out. Y'all know me. Y'all know Dr. Toni. I'm up early in the morning, and I'm working out five. I do usually work out 5 days a week. I remember
Wow.
one time I tried. I at particular times that when I couldn't go in the morning, I would try to switch it up and go in the evening. Oh my God, it would take me forever to go to sleep if I work out in
Yes.
the evening. So now I just don't work out in the evening. I have to do it in the morning. That's my rhythm. And so if you are an afternoon or evening person that has to work out in the evening for work or whatever, you recommend not doing that. How many hours before?
5 to 6 hours.
Five to
So I
six
would, yeah, if
hours.
you go to bed
Mm-hmm.
at 10 o'clock, then don't exercise after 5 p.m.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, to your point too, you don't want to eat or drink within 3 hours of going to bedtime, because as you get older, if you eat or drink, well, first of all, if you eat, then all of that energy will need to be used to digest your food.
Right.
And then if you drink too much, then you're going to have to get up and
And go
go
to the
to the
bathroom.
restroom.
Right. Uh-huh.
And so then you gotta feel around. You want to turn on the light, you gotta feel around to make sure you don't run into a wall or trip over something.
And let's not forget, Janine, the older
Yes,
we get, ladies, y'all know we can't hold it as long. So you're trying to rush
exactly,
to the bathroom in the middle of the night.
exactly. And you don't want to hit your toe on the
Uh-huh.
bedpost trying
Uh-huh.
to get to the bathroom.
Uh-huh.
And then I would just also suggest that you have a routine that makes you relax. So some
Okay.
people reading a book, you can listen to music, take a bath, a bubble bath, find your sweet spot that makes you relax, and
Okay.
then
Find your
get into
sweet
bed.
spot. I love that. Find your sweet spot. Listen. Find your sweet
Yes.
spot. Find it. Okay, good. Good, good, good. All right. So those are some any other tips other than those?
Well, my last one, and I'm guilty of this. I have to watch HGTV before going to bed. Helps me relax,
Uh-huh.
but you shouldn't watch TV. The mobile phone, we talked about this before, Dr. Tony. That
Yes.
phone, the text messages, and all
Whew.
the other group me's come through, and beep, beep, beep goes on. So
Uh-huh.
I would suggest
And you're on
moving the
social
phone.
media scrolling.
Yes,
Yes.
looking again.
Uh,
And so that light, which is called the blue light, that comes from an iPad or iPhone,
Mm-hmm.
will actually stimulate your brain to think you should be awake. So I would
Oh,
suggest
are
putting
you
that phone,
serious?
yes, the blue
The
light.
blue light. Did you hear
It's
that?
called a blue light.
The blue light
So
on your phone or your iPad is
yes,
designed to make your brain, what did you say?
active,
Active.
active,
So
and
you
it thinks
it
that you
lets
should be awake.
it thinks that you should be awake. This is why
Yes,
you have to put that phone away, turn it
yes,
off, put it in another room. Yes, I got it. Okay.
yes. It sounds like I'm talking to you, Dr. Tony.
Yes, you are.
So I have, tried many of these tips. When working, I would go through the processes of what I had to do the next day.
Mhm.
What did I do this? Did I do that? So
Mhm.
sometimes I put a notepad next to my bed, and I would just write out some things before the things the next to
Mhm.
the to do list
Mhm.
to do the next day, and then I can sleep very solidly after doing my to-do list. And
Wow.
that's a very good way of resting your brain and get good sleep. And
Wow.
again, wake up as best you can the same time the next day. And during this COVID-19 experience, virus, I would say stick to your sleep schedule as it was, when you were going out to go to
Okay.
work.
Okay.
Because that way you are in rhythm with your body, and just stay in rhythm, and that's what
Mm.
we all need to do at this point.
Stay in rhythm with your body. I love that. And it's going to be so important because in this COVID-19 environment that we're in with this pandemic, we're working from home and we're doing all kind of Zoom calls and webinars and things of that
Yes,
nature. And so even with that, we got to put in some boundaries so that we
yes,
know when to cut it off so that we can begin to let our bodies shut down, if you will, for lack of a better term. I don't know if that's proper, but to
yes.
say just shutting it down so that we
Shutting it
can
down.
begin to go to sleep.
Yes.
Wow, 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 Janine. Well, I'm telling you, let me ask you this. Let me ask you one other question. Are there
Sure.
any apps or any things that you can recommend that we use for that meditative time that to prepare that
Yes.
atmosphere for us to go to sleep?
There are several apps. One, Shut Eye, is one that's been commonly used. So when you look at treatment, you can treat it, pharmacologically or non-pharmacologically.
Okay.
And so I would consider an app as treating it non-pharmacologically.
Okay.
And so there is, some things that you can do. I, describe some of the tips that you can do, but there's also what we call CBTI, which is cognitive behavioral therapy. And
Mhm.
typically, a psychologist would administer this, and it just teaches you some behavioral techniques.
Mhm.
But there are also some relaxation training, and then this app called Shut Eye is one that it does almost the same thing.
Mhm.
It's teaching you strategies to manage your sleep, and some people are just so wired up that it just takes them a while to really get in to change that habit. And so some of these um, apps and other things. I think there was one on TV that I saw the other day. I can't remember the name of it, but it would count down for breathing. And I
Okay.
thought it was such a neat way because it comes on during the day and you actually stop and breathe. And
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things that helps you to just, as we talked about, relax. And so that's the pharmacological, non-pharmacological. When you
Mhm.
look at pharmacological, there are some things over the counter. Now, if you're a person who likes to use natural
Mhm.
products,
Mhm.
there's lavender, that's on, melatonin is
Mhm.
recommended.
Mhm.
There's even magnesium that
Mhm.
helps to relax your
Mhm.
brain as well.
Mhm.
And then some people, like when traveling from one coast to the other,
Mhm.
Tylenol PM has been, commonly used because it causes to sleep, but that's not something that you want to use, every day to go to sleep.
Okay.
But those are some of the things over the counter. And then
Mhm.
if it really, really gets bad and you've seen a clinician and he
Mhm.
recommends a particular prescription,
Mhm.
there's a class of drugs called a sedative hypnotics, and they can be benzodiazepines. You probably haven't, a Valium. These are older products,
Mhm.
but there's newer products, orexin antagonists, and non-benzodiazepines, and they have their effectiveness in a short term for people who maybe have short-term insomnia. Maybe you've lost
Mhm.
a loved one, a husband has passed, and you're just having trouble sleep. It is okay to admit that you have trouble
Mm.
sleeping and
Mhm.
then give you a short-term prescription medication. However, you still need to use those bedtime tips to
Mhm.
help with shifting you into better sleep.
Those bedtime. I like the way you put that, bedtime tips. Good. And what do you think about aromatherapy? Does that help?
Absolutely. In fact,
Okay.
I love
I do
aromatherapy
too.
in the hot
I
bath.
thought about that when you said lavender, because
Yes.
I that's one of the
And breathing the
yes.
lavender in
Yeah.
and taking some breaths. It's the
Yeah.
deep breaths to it. So I certainly highly recommend aromatherapy.
Yeah. Sometimes I wear Fitbit, and I know some people do the Apple Watch and other things.
Yes.
And sometimes in the middle of the day, my Fitbit will just kick me and say, breathe. You
Yes.
know?
My Apple Watch does
Yeah,
too. And I
yeah.
thought, oh, or stand if I've
Yeah,
been
yeah,
sitting,
yeah. Or
sitting
move.
too long. Yes, move. Oh, you didn't move enough today. So I think all of these devices that we have
Mhm.
are very good, but some people can get overwhelmed with a
Okay.
device.
Okay.
So you have to find what works with your lifestyle. And I didn't bring up nutrition, but nutrition is very important as well when
Okay.
we're looking at good sleep. You don't want to eat, a tub of ice cream before going
Oh
to bed.
Jesus.
So look
Oh
at what
Jesus.
you're eating before. And we talked about that red wine. A lot of people encourage red wine, and one glass, I'm not going to say will do you in, but watch how close you drink the red wine before going to bed,
Okay.
because it will impact your solid sleep.
Okay.
So go to sleep, but you'll wake up. So just be
Wow.
careful of that one glass of wine
Okay.
sometimes.
And so now sleep studies, do those things
Yes.
are those done? You have to request that from your doctor?
Yes, now that's the other thing. When you get diagnosed by a clinician that you have a sleep disorder, he will recommend a sleep study. Now, a sleep study is done in a sleep lab, and it's a polysonography is done, and they hook you up to this machine.
Mhm.
It will record your brain activity, it will
Mhm.
record your heart rate, your breaths. It'll look to see if you stop breathing, which I mentioned in sleep apnea.
Mhm.
And the snoring is also looked at during a sleep study. So you'll get the results back, because it is you go to, just like you're going to bed at home,
Mhm.
but you're
Mhm.
hooked up to a machine. And it's very important if someone thinks that you have sleep apnea, because a lot has not been seen in women or
Mhm.
studied in women. And there are some times, and particularly men, that have died during their sleep, and they've had sleep apnea and was undiagnosed. So we do
Wow.
need to take this very serious. If you think you have sleep apnea, snoring, and you stop breathing during your sleep, it is very important
Very
that you go.
serious.
Yes, and it's
Wow.
not to be taken lightly.
Okay. Well, Janine, I'm telling you, you have given us a whole lot. And I think one time before I was sharing with you how I feel like sleep is not just a physical issue, but I also feel like it's a spiritual thing. Coming from
Absolutely.
my background, from theological perspective, I when I look at the Bible and look at different scriptures in the Bible that talk about sleep and peace, and God giving us good, giving His beloved sleep and peace that surpasses all understanding. And even when I look at the narrative of Elijah and one of the in I think it's First Kings, or when Elijah had just come out of a battle, and the Bible says he was dealing with depression, and one of the things that God did was cause a deep sleep to fall on him. And then when he awakened, he ate a meal and went on to his next assignment. And so this sleep thing is so, so, so important. And when you told me that you deal with that and you're teaching on that, and I think
Yes.
one time before you told me about like a sleep, I think you called it sleep circles, or sleep clubs or something like that, where people are actually encouraging each other around sleep.
Yeah, yeah, actually, I always check in with my friends. I'll send out a message. How are you sleeping? You know, before this COVID-19
Mm,
virus, we were all so busy. A lot, professional women or
mm,
women who work. The other things we don't say a lot about, we understand that the healthcare workers are working overtime, but, changing people who work night schedules,
right.
it's awful for sleep. So, and studies have shown that hospital workers and anyone who works on a shift workers
Hmm.
are more likely to have heart attacks because their sleep is interrupted.
Wow.
And so, it is very important if you're a healthcare worker that you also look at getting good sleep, especially if you're that 11 to 7 person,
Mm.
that you still focus on your sleep because it is change. Remember, a long time ago, the street lights went out and it was quiet and dark, and we all went to sleep
Exactly.
at the same
I
time.
mean, we knew
Now,
the street.
yeah,
You had to be home when the street lights
home.
went off, and that was.
Exactly.
And you know what else? The television went off. Remember when the
Exactly. You
television went? I tell my
you heard
children,
the
you all have
yes,
television 24/7. We were growing up. The
exactly.
television went off at
The
like
national
11 o'clock,
anthem. That's it.
and then you would hear
We're
that.
done.
Then see that little line go through the TV, and you hear the.
Yes.
Doo. That means that everything is shut down until the next morning.
Yes.
Right. But
So
now we don't
yes,
shut down. We don't shut
at all.
down.
It's
Wow.
24 hours. And
24
so this
hours.
this is the time that we are taking this time now to really focus. And I think, for me, I'm just so happy that you asked me to talk about sleep. And it just really gives me an opportunity to really sit back and understand now what is God saying to us now. And I
Right.
think it is that we get rest.
Mm-hmm.
And because otherwise we'd be still going,
Right,
still
right, right,
out there.
right.
And
And
so,
I love what you said in checking in on your friends. You said
yes,
ask them, how is your sleep? We don't ask people that. We
nope.
don't ask how is
And,
your
well,
sleep?
yeah. And the other thing is sleep. There is some data that says that we talked about the immune system, but also cancer is also being related to poor sleep because
Wow.
there's a interferon and TNF alpha. And I know those terms are, more scientific terms, but
Mm-hmm.
if you learn more about cancer, you'll find that this level, that's why you need good sleep is it removes TNF alpha and all these interferons and things that are thought to cause cancer. So I go to sleep every night just thanking God for one that I would get good sleep, but also to remove all this unwanted waste is what we call it from our bodies, and that's what
Wow.
sleep ultimately does.
Wow, wow, wow. Whew, I tell you what, I know sometimes in my own life, just a good nap was all I needed, or a good night's
Yes,
sleep. And even when things are happening, it's just something
yes,
about sleep that even when you wake up the next day, even if the problem is still there, your perspective is changed, or you see things
yes,
differently, you can handle it maybe even better. And so that's why I say sleep is so important, spirit, soul,
yes,
and body. I thank
yes.
you so much, Janine. Listen, how can we find you? How can my listeners find you?
Well, I have actually, because of you, Dr. Tony, by next Friday, I will have my company all up and ready to go. My mom and I have been working on a name for it, but it is to help with the journey to wellness, is what I know that is going to be a part of my wellness, and my health is so important, and everyone's health is so important. So
Wow.
my focus right now is to get that LLC done this week.
That's right. Get it
But
done. You
I
know,
will
that's
get
my
it
thing.
done.
Get it done. I'm gonna
Yeah,
check you on it.
yeah,
I'm gonna
and
check in with you. Say how's your sleep, and then I'm gonna say
that's it.
how's that LLC coming.
Exactly. And so I just want to again thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about sleep and health. And one important message that I want to leave with you today in your audience is sleep does matter. And so if
Oh,
we could just take that every day and say, my sleep does matter.
my sleep does matter.
The sleep does matter. And then
Wow.
go to sleep.
And go to sleep. Wow, wow, wow. And Janine, so
Yes.
once you get that LLC up, will you make sure I get it so I can get it to my
Yes.
listeners?
I
With
absolutely
that
will.
website it's going to be and all of that. But right now, are
Yes.
you on Instagram? Are you on Facebook?
I I am on Instagram, on my personal Instagram page, which
Mm-hmm.
I'm fine with everyone. It's J Lynette, Lynnette
Uh-huh.
18.
J
J Lynette
Lynette
18 is my
18.
Instagram, and I'll be
Okay.
happy to answer any questions regarding sleep.
Okay. Thank you. Thank
Thank
you. Thank
you.
you. I look forward to working with you again. You know, we're a part of the
Yes.
Women of Color Empowerment
Yes.
Institute, and I'm on the health committee with you, that you
Yes,
lead our health
absolutely.
committee, and it's a pleasure to serve on that committee with you. And so, listen, your sleep matters. Did you hear what she said? Our sleep matters. And that's the last thing
Yes.
she want to leave with us. Remember, your sleep matters. Check in on your friends. Ask your friends, how is your sleep? Use these sleep strategies. Turn it off at night. Go to bed. Turn off
Yes.
that television. Turn off your phone. Drink a nice cup of tea. Get some
Yes.
aromatherapy. Make sure your room and the lighting in your room is properly darkened so that you can fall asleep. And by all means, if you are having issues, seek medical advice and attention,
Yes.
because you want to live, and you want to live a satisfied, a healthy life. You want to have a good attitude. You want to have a good mood. You want to rid your body of all the things that can cause cancer and all other kind of diseases. Certainly, you don't want to die in your sleep from sleep apnea and sleep disorders. So listen,
Yes.
listen, this is so important. It's so important, especially right now. Your sleep matters. Thank you, Janine.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I am so delighted about bringing the Harmonize Your Life podcast to you. Would you do me a favor? If you are enjoying this podcast, would you email me at hello@drtonyalvarado.com? I want to hear from you. I want your feedback. I want to know if there are any other topics that you are interested in as it relates to wellness, self-care, nutrition, or just overall bringing harmony into your life. Email me, contact me at hello@drtonyalvarado.com.